Once there was a wicked sprite that enjoyed playing tricks on others. He was one of the most mischievous sprites that ever lived. One day he was in a really good mood. Do you know what wicked sprites do when they're in a good mood? They craft something terrible and interesting. This sprite thought it would be a good idea to make a mirror. It was no ordinary mirror. It had some strange powers. Anything that was beautiful, pure and good looked ugly, terrifying and evil in the mirror. Those things that were already good for nothing and a sore to the eye looked even uglier and even more horrific. The sprite was delighted to find that the mirror grinned whenever someone had a good thought. He showed his precise mirror to all the little sprites in his school, and there were hoots and screeches of delight. They were glad to have the mirror and flew around holding it all the time. They looked at the people through it, and eventually there wasn't a single person who didn't look ugly or distorted. In their excitement, they flew higher and higher until they were close to the stars. Suddenly, the mirror grinned and shook so much that the sprites couldn't hold it any longer. It went crashing through the skies and shattered into a million pieces, some as big as a person and others as tiny as a grain of sand. It was only after it broke that the mirror worked even more evil than ever before. Anybody who got a grain of the shattered mirror in their eye saw the world as a bleak and ugly place. Some people got a splinter in their heart. Then the mirror sucked all the love out of the heart and turned it into a lump of snow, cold and cruel. Some of the broken pieces were as large as window panes. Some shards went into people's spectacles, and even when they looked at their friends through them, all they saw were horrible, distorted creatures. The shattered glass dust floated around in the air. The evil sprite was delighted because the mirror was working better than he'd ever hoped it would.
This mirror is my greatest invention ever.
The greatest indeed.
Let's check how it works. Everything should look disgusting in this mirror.
In a large town, there lived a boy and a girl, Kay and Gerda. They lived next door to each other, but anybody who saw them playing together would have thought they were brother and sister. The town was so crammed with houses that the people had no place for gardens. They were content with a couple of flower pots. But the children had something just about as good as a garden. At the place where the roofs of the two houses met, they had large wooden boxes with vegetables and lovely rose bushes. Sometimes they took their stools and sat among the bushes and pretended that they were in their own big garden. But when the winter came, the children could no longer sit outside. They had to be content with playing inside the house. One day, Gerda and Kay were sitting by the window in Kay's house. Kay's grandmother, who was looking at the snowflakes, said quietly,
"The white bees are swarming."
Kay and Gerda looked at her in surprise.
Grandma, do the bees have a queen?
Kay asked.
"Oh, yes, they do,"
said Grandma.
"Where the swarm hangs in thick clusters, she flies there. Sometimes she flies into towns and peeps in through the windows. When she does that, the most beautiful patterns form on the window pane. Have you both seen this happen?"
Kay and Gerda nodded. They'd seen it many times, so Grandma was telling the truth. That evening, when Kay was sitting by the window alone, he saw something remarkable. He noticed that one snowflake was larger and prettier than the rest and sparkled in the moonlight. The flake of snow grew larger and larger, and at last it was like a young lady dressed in the finest white gauze made of a million little flakes like stars. She was so beautiful and delicate